No Prayer for the Dying is Iron Maiden's 8th album, and it is definitely one to talk about. Now, obviously, before we talk about the music, let's talk about a bit of history first. Adrian Smith is gone. He wasn't happy with the way the band was going. I'm not sure whether that was because of Summer in Time and Seventh Son, or the or the musical change that was happening in pre-production. Although he does contribute to one song on this album, I believe it's Hooks in You that he contributes to. But anyway, his replacement is Yannick Gers, and a lot of people don't like him. I don't think that highly of him. He's definitely not as good as Adrian, but he's not too bad. He managed to fill the shoes alright, especially considering a lot of the albums that when Yannick just came in, the first two, are not even that special anyway, which is kind of a spoiler for what I think about these two albums, this album and Fear of the Dark. But anyway, so yeah, Bruce, very, very influential to the style of this album. Now, this is when Bruce started his solo work, and Bruce basically went back, his mindset went back to what it was after the World Slavery Tour. He wanted to strip everything down, he wanted to make a lot more basic, kind of easy to listen to music, and this time, rather than Steve and the rest of the band completely turning him down, they took on this idea, and I have absolutely no idea why. A lot of people can just straight up blame Bruce for this, but I partially blame Steve as well, because Iron Maiden is Steve's band, and Steve should have said, no, we're not going to do that, you know? We're going to keep making good music. And this could just be a result from them having the normal kind of writer's block, and they weren't getting anything really cool and writing any really particularly special music, so they just took on Bruce's idea and went with it. That could be what happened, but because you can only make so many absolutely amazing albums before you hit a point where you're having a bit of a writer's block, and that's understandable, you know. You can't expect a band to keep making a really, really, really good album for a long period of time. You just can't come to expect that. But yeah, this album, I'm going to make a slight comparison. It, in a way, is kind of like the Black Album. It just strips everything down, takes out a lot of the cool things that made their previous albums really, really special. You know, it's a lot more commercial, a lot more basic. It may not even be heavy metal at some point. At some point, I think this isn't really even metal, you know? But yeah, I think the Black Album's even better than this album, and I don't think that particularly highly about the Black Album. I think the Black Album is okay. But this album's probably even worse than the Black Album, and it doesn't make me happy to say that Iron Maiden made a bad album, but when they make a bad album, or they've made a bad album in this situation, I'm going to say it's a bad album, and this will go for the rest of my Iron Maiden reviews where Iron Maiden makes a bad album. I am going to say that it is bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a bad album, and there are other bad albums that Iron Maiden have made in their career, though not that many, thankfully. Now, the performance of the band is still okay. I mean, it's not Power Slave, but they're still performing pretty good. The musicianship is still there, but the music isn't good enough to show off these talented musicians, to be honest. The artwork, not one of Derek Riggs' best. I mean, it's kind of cool when you first when you first see it, but it's not very stylish, you know. It doesn't have anything kind of really cool to look at, you know. Power Slave or Summer in Time, I can just kind of stare at it and appreciate it for like 10 minutes, but this, I just can't do that. It's not really that special. The next album, Fear of the Dark, would have a bit more of an improvement, at least as far as the artwork is concerned. And the production is another thing that suffers a little bit. Now, this is when Steve Harris started playing a bit more of a part in the production work. Martin Birch would still produce this album and Fear of the Dark, and then he would retire at the same time that Bruce leaves, or around the same time. But the sound of this album isn't as big, and this is partially due to the stylistic direction that I've talked about. It's a lot more kind of almost back to their roots, but at least then, the music, the writing was there. This is a stylistic movement that I'm not very happy about, and the music isn't that particularly special either, you know? I have nothing against kind of, you know, commercial, easy to listen to hard rock, like Van Halen and Bon Jovi. I don't hate them, but that's not Iron Maiden, you know? I want Iron Maiden to make really good music that is complex and shows musical evolution. But not only do they make the stylistic movement, but they just aren't writing particularly good music. And there are some good moments, but a lot of it is just kind of boring, to be honest. And that's the worst part, is it's just kind of boring. And it doesn't really keep your attention for the whole 40, 45 minutes, whatever it is. But anyway, let's just go to the track list. So yeah, the first track is Tailgunner, and straight off the bat, we're going to talk about one element that is present on this entire album, and I despise, and that is Bruce's vocal performance. His vocal performance is, to put it nicely, atrocious. He's using that thing that he was kind of doing on Seventh Son, and that is the raspy vocals, the really, you know, dark, raspy vocals. And he used it on Seventh Son when it was appropriate. He used it a little bit to create atmosphere, and it was a cool music, it was a cool vocal effect on that album. But now, he's using it on every goddamn song, and it's just so annoying. You want him to sing properly, because you know he can too, and that's the thing. Bruce Dickinson kind of has, I would say, about two sort of musical, or not musical, but vocal peaks. From Number of the Beast to Seventh Son, then he didn't sing very good, either in Maiden or his solo career, and then the second one is from Accident of Birth all the way to Rock in Rio, which spans his solo career and Iron Maiden. After Rock in Rio, he was still singing alright, but you could tell he's aging by that point. But by that point, you can't really do anything about it, because he's aging. But it's the most annoying is when it's between Accident of Birth and Seventh Son, because he's just not singing good. He's just doing this raspy thing that, honestly, it's good when it's a little bit, but it's just way too overused. And he would use it on Fear of the Dark too, which also suffers from the problem of Bruce's vocals. But anyway, going off on that little rant there, let's talk about the song Tailgunner. And this is actually one of the better tracks. I mean, weak chorus, nothing special musically, kind of like the rest of the album, but it's not too bad, kind of catchy, I guess. And lyrics, not that special, and yeah, honestly, it's not Iron Maiden's worst opener. It's not nearly the worst song on this album, but it's not that special. And the next song is Holy Smoke, and this is kind of making fun of the people that were burning their vinyls, burning Number of the Beast vinyls, the people that were accusing them of being Satanists. I believe that's what it's about. And that actually leads me to another thing that I forgot, I probably should have mentioned before the track list, but the lyrical change is a lot more prior to this. They talk about science fiction, about fantasy, about historical events, and that was awesome. I love that. And this is more current, it's more about politics and more about that sort of stuff, which I have nothing against. It's kind of like something that Megadeth would do, kind of about the politics and stuff, about current events. But I don't mind it, but I prefer Maiden to do kind of what they used to do, the sci-fi, the fantasy, the history. I prefer those sort of lyrics, although these aren't too bad. So, and you know, they're changing it up, and it's not terrible, so I'll forgive them for that. But anyway, the actual song, Holy Smoke, has a pretty good guitar line, and is kind of another okay-ish song, kind of like Tailgunner. I don't think it's that bad. But again, same thing as almost all the other songs, repetitive, and nothing special about it. Moving on to No Prayer for the Dying, this song is just terrible. It's just slow, and I know Bruce can do the slow things. I've seen Bruce go for the really emotional, slow, ballady stuff. But his vocals are just terrible. Can't do it. Song, terrible. Moving on. Yeah, the next song is Public Enema, number 1, and yeah, this song is another really bad one. It's just boring, weak music, and isn't very good in any way. I don't even want to talk about it that much. It's just kind of a filler and bad and nothing special. And then the next song is Fate's Warning, and this comes in with a pretty cool, this has a pretty good guitar solo, but other than that, same deal, nothing special, weak music, nothing interesting about it, and it's repetitive. So, moving on, The Assassin. And this is actually the first of two songs that are actually pretty good on this album, and that is this song and the next song. And this is, has a cool vocal effect where they harmonize, I believe that's the term, I'm not really good with the specific music terms. They harmonize the voices, and there's kind of like the background voices, which I actually quite like. You know, they're still doing some cool things. It's not a throwaway, you know, you appreciate it at least. But yeah, the chorus is a bit weak, and that kind of lets down the whole song, to be honest. But it's still one of the better moments on this album. And the next song is Run Silent, Run Deep. And this is, again, one of the better songs, like The Assassin, as it comes in with a pretty catchy gallop, and you're like, okay, I could get into this. This seems like a pretty good song. And yeah, it has a cool ending, but the middle gets a little bit repetitive. Has some cool things in there, but, you know, for this album, it's definitely a stronger track, but, again, nothing that's particularly amazing, nothing to write home about. And then the next song is Hooks in You, which is definitely the worst song on this album. Maybe even the worst song that Iron Maiden's ever written, but then there's Angel and the Gambler. We'll get there when we get there. And this song is repetitive and crap. How many times do you have to repeat hooks in you, hooks in me, hooks in you, hooks in me? God, why? This song is atrocious. It's just terrible. Musically, nothing there. Just repeating hooks in me, hooks in you, hooks in me, hooks in you. It's just terrible. Absolutely worst song on this album, and it's terrible. Moving on to Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Now, this is actually Iron Maiden's only UK #1 single, which is a tragedy because they have about 50 songs that are better than this. That is probably putting it too low, saying there's only 50, but anyway, yeah, this song is just pure, mindless catchiness. That's all it is. It's doing the raspy thing. It sucks, but it's catchy. I mean, it's catchy. It's good for the radio. Bring your daughter to the slaughter. You know, it's kind of catchy. So, but that's it. Mindless catchiness. That's all this song is. Anyway, moving on to Mother Russia, the last song. The fake epic, because there is no epic. This is not an epic. It's the fake epic, because the song's less than 6 minutes long. This is like 5.5 minutes long. So, it has a kind of coolish intro, kind of building up, and you think it's gonna be alright, and it is. It's actually alright. Probably the third best to Run Silent, Run Deep, and The Assassin. But yeah, Bruce's vocals are nothing that special, repetitive, and has some good music in there, but I don't care at this point. This album's that bad. One song can't save it at this point. But yeah, it's not that bad, and the lyrics aren't that great either, so yeah. And that concludes the track list to Iron Maiden's 8th album, No Prayer for the Dying. It's definitely one of their weakest, and obviously the main reason for this is Bruce, but as I mentioned, you can't blame Bruce entirely, because Steve should have stopped him, or Steve should have stopped him from bringing in this stupid idea to make commercial, simple, basic music. Again, I have nothing wrong with that necessarily, although that's not Iron Maiden. And they were just having, I don't know if it was just a regular kind of writer's block, or I don't know, maybe they just started not caring because they knew Bruce was going to leave. Basically, from this point on, they knew Bruce was going to leave eventually. I personally think they should have kicked him out as soon as this album was released, and then moved on with their life, but they kept going until Bruce said he was going to leave. I think they should have kicked him out, to be honest, because he was not singing good on studio or live. The live albums in this period of time are just completely not that special at all. And I know why they're live albums at this point, so you can have, like, the entire initial Bruce era of material, but Live After Death is about 50 billion times better, and Made in England is about 20 billion times better. So yeah, and that concludes it. I know this wasn't very positive, and I know that there are going to be some Iron Maiden fans that like this album, and that's fine. Voice your opinions, tell me why you like it, and I'd be happy to read your comments and reply later, guys.